Welcome to the second video in our little video series on polishing. Today, I will give you 5 tips that should make your life a bit easier, allowing you to polish vehicle paint faster, safer, and more effectively. Let's get started. So, we'll begin with the simplest thing, which is the tape. We don't see it yet with the polishing pad, polish, and everything that goes with it. The tape is an important helper. It protects your plastic attachments, trim, and rubber strips from damage. In this video, I will show you what happens when we don't tape off. That's why I brought my little victim, our BMW E. And now let's take a look at how quickly damage can occur here, for example, to trim, rubber parts, and so on. Here we have a typical spot, the A-pillar. Most of the time there are sealing rubbers from the door, from the window frame, or here we also have borders, for example, made of hard rubber like this. Or even flat plastic trim or window surrounds. It varies greatly among many vehicles. And so you don't get it wrong, use this 2001 tape here. And I wouldn't use any painter's tape or anything like that because it dissolves very, very quickly due to the rotational movement of the polishing pad and the plate and starts to give up the ghost. That's why you should use sensible tape, which is also well suited for this area. I have here the one from Elitist. You can also use, for example, the HPX. Those are my 2 favorites. There will certainly be many more new tapes in the future. But many tapes have disappointed me repeatedly in the last months and years. They dissolved far too quickly and became rough far too quickly. And if you have removed it once to reposition it a bit, then you simply have a loss of adhesive strength. Those are my 2 favorites, the Elitist and the HPX tapes. Here we would tape off again to simply avoid getting onto this border. Now let's do the following. We won't tape off. I'll show you what it looks like when you damage the trim. So, now we have polished our A-pillar and suddenly realize, oh, we have come onto this rubber trim and have smoothed it out. You can already see it here. But let me bring you a little closer so you can see it more clearly. This is how it looks. And the rubber is very, very difficult to restore to its original condition. You now need to test many things. You can try cleaning the area again with a cleaner using a rubber or plastic cleaner. Most of the time, however, the surface is smoothed out. This means you now have this sanding haze on it, and getting rid of that is an absolute disaster. Next tip, use a scrub pad to slightly roughen the surface so that you can remove this shine, because this here won't come off. This is now permanently attached to this surface. And especially if you have a new vehicle, these are the decorative trims or edge finishes, however you want to call them. If you cause damage here, it's super, super annoying, so tape off, tape off, tape off, especially in such areas. I would tape off everywhere you see the risk of it coming into contact with such a surface. And with that, you can also decide for yourself how much you want to tape off and where you want to tape off. But I am someone who prefers to tape off a little extra rather than end up causing damage. Tip number 2 in this video has to do with the polishing machine and the purchase of the entire set. My main tip to start is to get a machine that offers you 2-in-1. The plates N125 because those are the common sizes for me on the vehicle. There are also larger plates for bigger vehicles that can be used. I use it extremely rarely because I can cover a very large area with the plate and the corresponding pad in the range of 100, 30, 105 and 30 and also partially 140 millimeters. So get a machine that can do both, which is my personal tip for you to start with. If you say, okay, I definitely want to build a multi-part system. That means I also want several polishing machines. You can of course get an ER, and an ER, for example, is also completely feasible. So it's important to remember to always have both support plates with you, either in a machine like the DA Pro or also with the DA. And if you get this, for example, at the start, you still have the option to later get a DA15 with 125mm and 15mm stroke and simply convert it to a 75mm support point as you see here, using it, as in my case, as a pure ER and the DA15 as a pure ER, which can even be upgraded to 150mm optionally. And that's why my tip is to get a machine that can use both backing plates, or if you already know, okay, I want multiple machines, get one of each, so you can properly polish the areas on the vehicle. In 2001, there are so many areas where you simply can't get in with the large pad, so many design edges, so many bends, and you'll notice that even on the largest vehicles, like some minivans and Audi Qs, there are so many design edges where you think, okay, it's actually a big car, so I'll use a large pad. No, that's absolutely the wrong belief here. You really need a wide range of support plate sizes and pad sizes. And if you really want to achieve the maximum, it's almost too big. Then you need to use smaller machines, and that was just behind the camera. For example, here is an Evo Mini. Here you have the option to use an ER plate. This means you can see the gradation of 125, 75, 50, 8 and 30 mm, giving you a very large range of polishing pad sizes from 5 to 30 mm. Up to here, we are somewhere around 105 and 30, 140. So think about how many machines you might want to acquire in the future. Do you want to start with a 2-in-1 machine, or do you want to get 2 different machines right away? I also made an extra video for you on this, which is called the perfect polishing machine for you. I will also link it for you down here under the video. We will take another look at the topic together, and you will have a little guide on what you might take home. And that's why my big thought is, don't just focus on 125. You will realize after about 30 minutes of polishing the vehicle that there are many spots you can't really reach. And this is a great tip for beginners who may not have purchased anything yet. Or maybe someone in 2021 is considering a machine, whichever it may be. But remember, have the 75mm option or even smaller. However, this usually requires a new machine. Another very important tip to keep in mind. Tip number 3 also relates to the equipment, specifically the polishing pads. A polishing pad, for example, needs to be cleaned from time to time, but eventually the point is reached where the entire structure, the foam structure, is saturated with polish. This means that brushing or blowing it out provides little help. That's why you need to change the pad, even if it has become too warm and very, very soft. You know this so-called thermal stability. The higher the quality of the foam, the higher the quality of the pad, the longer such a pad will last while you are polishing. Some pads lose their structural strength after a short time, around a surface area of 50 by 50 with 2 cross passes or with 2 passes of 2001, becoming so worn and soft that the polishing performance drops significantly. Therefore, make sure to get decent pads. There will be more tips on this later, but right now it's about the correct number of pads, and there is no single correct number of pads. However, there is definitely a guideline that one can keep in mind. 1 pad to start is okay, but you'll notice that you definitely need more pads for the vehicle, and everyone has different opinions on this. Some say that 4 pads per strength are sufficient. For example, my tip is 4 pads per thickness and size. This will equip you very, very well. However, this is just a guideline. So, take a close look at your vehicle. Estimate how many surfaces you need to work on with 125mm pads, how many with 75mm pads, and how many with smaller pads. This will determine the amount of pads you need. Most beginner sets come with what can be considered a limited number of pads. The reason for this is simply that you can equip yourself individually. What good is a set that contains 10 cut pads, 10 medium pads, and 10 finish pads if you don't need that quantity? You would naturally think, okay, that's really too much, and prefer to look for another set. That's why most starter kits are simply minimalist when it comes to the pads, and you can customize it depending on what you need. Some may not need any heavy cut pads at all. They say that for my vehicle, finish and medium pads are enough. It's a very soft paint, and I've heard it can be done well, so I just tried it out. That's why I might not need 10 heavy cut pads at all. So, the set is not interesting to me. That's why the sets are designed very minimally. So you can decide for yourselves how much you need and how much do you need. You've already heard my tip. I would say 4 pads per strength, and that's why the tip is to look for any discounted sets or promotional boxes, because we currently have this case. For example, these thermal pads from the detailing line are available in these promotional boxes. However, the pads are now available in different thicknesses. If you watch this video later or in 2 or 3 months, this box may no longer be available. And that's why the tip, because it fits perfectly right now. Such a heavily discounted box is ideal for expanding a beginner's set. And this is also available from other manufacturers. And there are also other variants here. Sometimes there are also 5 packs of a certain strength. So make sure to expand your starter set right from the beginning with a discounted box or a discounted pad set so you can work more flexibly on the vehicle. Take the opportunity. That's simply my tip. And therefore, don't just work with 1 pad, but start directly with a small extension. Tip number 4 revolves around the entire polishing system again. If you have a vehicle like this, no matter which one, you will not be able to avoid using several machines unless you leave certain areas out. Here with the vehicle Usen from 1996, you have relatively large, beautiful, smooth, flat surfaces. However, this has changed significantly even back then. In today's time, you have narrow design edges everywhere, pointed areas, and even worse, extreme bulges or concave surfaces. And that's why, in the long run, I tell every beginner from the very start, if they want to acquire something and really polish everything on the vehicle, you will not be able to avoid specialized machines. And these are the small mini polishing machines, which can be either corded or battery operated. They usually cover support areas from, I believe, a minimum of about 30 mm to a maximum of 75. With the Flex PXE, for example, here with the Evo Mini, you have 30, 8, and 30, and 50 mm. And since we have already heard in the previous tips that one should definitely think about 75 and 125 at the beginning, U-Sand is, for example, now the perfect addition. However, you can also make it arbitrary. You can also work with a PXE, for example, which can also be battery operated. But I am more of a fan of wired iron. But you just have to see where the journey goes. Also in terms of strength, there will definitely be stronger developments in the future. I will also keep an eye on what comes to the market for you. But you need something small and compact here, because if we take a closer look at the BMW now, large roof, hood divided into 3 parts. But even that has areas where you simply have no chance with it. Now we have even created an even higher gloss on the surface down here because we worked with a heavy cut polish. But you can clearly see that a really beautiful radiant blue area has been created on this edge here. And here we have this milky unpolished area included as well. And I want to show it to you again like this because then the lamp angle fits. Here you can see it very, very clearly again. And I believe it's a better example that one should take a look at such a small polishing machine if they really want to polish in this area. There is no better example. Very, very clear. And how beautiful the blue is on the BMW here, many of you have already confirmed. I agree with you. Once polished nicely, it really is a dream. And all the scratches are gone. The 5th tip of this video is a bit philosophical. Dare to try it out, experiment with stronger pads and polishes. These vehicle paints can really withstand a lot. Just try using a finish pad, finish polish, and tape off a section of 40 by 40 with a medium pad and medium polish from a beginner set and simply see, okay, what is the difference? How does it compare in terms of gloss? How does it behave with scratches? How many scratches have I already removed? And experiencing this happens very, very quickly. That's why the 5th tip was just a little encouragement for you out there to get started. And if you have any questions, I am always available for you on WhatsApp. And finally, I want to share a personal point with you. It doesn't matter if you polish 2 cars a year, if you want to learn to polish for 1 car, for your loved one, or if you might want to start doing it part-time someday, or if you might want to pursue it full-time. The basic technique of polishing, the approach, and the combination of pad and polish machine is the same for everyone. For me, it has nothing to do with being a professional if someone can polish a vehicle like this, because anyone can learn it very, very quickly. Of course, at some point you will encounter problem cases where you might need to sand down a scratch or a key scratch or whatever. There are many, many points that come into play in this area. However, the topic of basic polishing, removing scratches from vehicle surfaces, and creating shine is an area that can be learned very, very quickly. And that's why I want to encourage you to take a look at the topic and maybe even get started yourself so you can celebrate your own successes. And I've been saying this for a very, very long time because it can be learned very, very quickly and easily with videos. It's even better if you can see it demonstrated live. That's why here's a tip. Maybe consider attending a workshop or come directly to my individual workshop. Then you will learn everything you see in these videos absolutely perfectly in just one day. And you will go home and be able to do a lot of really great things. And you will be amazed at how much you can achieve when you come here with 0 knowledge and how much knowledge you leave with, and then simply continue to solidify that knowledge and build it step by step. So have courage, go for it, and that's why my tip number 5 is to just start making an appeal. Until then, you're Sebastian. See you in the next video. I appreciate a thumbs up, and we'll see you in part 3 with the next 5 tips. And if you have any more, write them down below. Bye guys.